something about being in my kitchen by myself while it's quiet. The boys are napping right now, and I have a couple hours to putter away at making some food to keep our pantry stocked. Welcome back to the farmhouse. We are going to make a few different recipes today, and I hope you will join me for that. But of course, I need to start with a cup of coffee. My favorite thing to do while the children are having quiet time is to enjoy a hot cup of coffee. Something that's really important to me when I decide I'm going to spend some time in my kitchen baking is to start with a clean slate. So I've taken some time after lunch before I put the boys down just to make sure all my counters are clean, my compost pail isn't full, and my sink is cleaned out, things are in the dishwasher. Another one of those things is restocking my egg basket here with eggs from our farm. I don't know why, but there's something about having colorful eggs out on the counter that makes me so happy. Another thing I'm going to start before I begin my baking for the day is feed my sourdough starter. I have been feeding my sourdough starter with all-purpose flour instead of my fresh milled. Probably the biggest reason is because it's just cheaper to do it that way. Also finding that in my house at this time of year, I don't know if it's a seasonal thing or a location thing, but my sourdough likes all-purpose better than the fresh milled, which is maybe not the case for everyone who does fresh milled flour and sourdough, but that is the case for me. So I'm going to just stick with it for now, and maybe things will be different in the future. But I also appreciate how all-purpose is more affordable. So if I'm feeding a sourdough starter, it just feels like less of a waste. I don't know if that's really a valid thought, but that's what I'm rolling with right now. And my starter is happy because it wasn't for a while there when we moved. It had to adjust a bit, and now it's doing well. I'm also going to add a nice beef roast to my crock pot for dinner tomorrow night. And I'm going to get that going with a big chunk of butter on top and some salt and pepper, and just let that roast on low for over 24 hours. I should mention this is right from frozen. Speaking of sourdough, I made some 2 days ago and had to throw it in the fridge on its bulk fermentation because my son was sick and I just didn't get to it, and it rose beautifully. It made me smile genuinely when I pulled it out of the fridge. I have been enjoying doing my bulk fermentation in the fridge after my stretch and folds, and it has been working really well for me. And then I just do a faster second rise when they're in their bannetins. I usually place them by the wood stove to just kind of help that out in my chilly kitchen, and they've been rising so well. This round I did about a third of the recipe with fresh milled flour. I was doing 100% fresh milled flour for my sourdough for a while, and I was getting disappointed that my loaves were not as beautiful as they could be. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go back and try 100% all-purpose and slowly work up my all-purpose to fresh milled ratio just to see where my perfect balance is for my taste and my family's taste. Everybody likes their bread a little bit different, but that's what I'm going to try, and it's been working really well doing 1/3. And so next time I make it, I'm going to try just a little bit more of the fresh milled and see where that gets me. Another recipe I'm going to be working on today is making pretzel buns. I've been craving these lately, and I am going to do this recipe with 100% fresh milled, but I'm doing them with yeast. I've got the yeast and the water getting to know each other in the mixer while I mill some hard white wheat berries for these pretzel buns. In this recipe, I'm going to then add 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, and I'm also going to add 4 tablespoons of melted butter. I always use salted butter. I'm not sure why. I guess it's just a habit. Maybe I should try unsalted for recipes to have better control over the salt, but I guess I'm a salt girl. I'm going to add the salted butter, 4 tablespoons of that, and then I'm going to go ahead and put in my 8 cups of fresh milled flour and followed by some salt. This is a recipe I have written in one of my notebooks. I don't know where it's from or when I came upon it or if I even adjusted it, but I will add the recipe in the description box below. It is a pretty foolproof recipe, which I'm always a fan of. And I usually have it going in my mixer on high speed for about 5 minutes. I'm not too careful to pay attention to the time. I just do it until everything's come together and had a good amount of time to form some good gluten development. I'm making a baking soda bath in a more shallow Dutch oven that I have so that I can have more surface area but use less water and baking soda. The recipe I've written down calls for 9 cups of water and a half a cup of baking soda, and today I just filled it up with water and then added what was left at the bottom of my baking soda jar because I did buy some new ones and we're gonna hope that works. So I'm gonna cover this. I put it in a Tupperware and just set it with my sourdough by the wood stove to rise, and it will rise pretty quickly. Next, I'm going to make some banana peanut butter muffins. I used to make muffins all the time. So if you have been around this channel for a while, you know that my channel used to be about home childcare, and I have since closed my home childcare program, moved to my husband's family farmhouse here, and so my videos look a little different because my days look a little different. But that being said, I used to make muffins like every other morning for my childcare crew, and so I never even had to look at the recipe. I would just throw it all together, mix it all up, and go. But I haven't made muffins in a while now, and I am finding myself wanting to have something like a muffin for the kids for a grab and go snack. And so I thought, today's the day I'm gonna work on some muffins, and I had a couple of bananas in my fridge that needed to be used up, so I went ahead and mixed those up with about a half a cup of Greek yogurt and 2 eggs, and my son is here helping me mix those together. And then we are going to add a bit of vanilla, and I'm going to use freshly milled flour for this as well. Muffins are the perfect place to use freshly milled flour if you are new to using it. And I added 2 cups of that, and then I did a teaspoon of baking soda and a tablespoon of baking powder, as well as about a half a teaspoon of salt. And then I always like to mix mine up with a whisk by hand because over mixing is when you get dry muffins. So I just try to mix it as little as possible. And then to add the peanut butter to this peanut butter banana muffin recipe, I just swirled in the last bits of my peanut butter jar here. Again, being careful not to overmix. And then I saw somewhere on the internet that if you want nice big rise in your muffins, you should space them out every other. I have had some luck with this, but I think that I'm maybe not filling them full enough. I will give it another go next time. And I'm going to preheat my oven now to 350. And once it's preheated, I'm going to throw these muffins in for 20 minutes. It's tricky when you're baking a whole bunch of things because you have to really plan it out with your oven temperature. All right, my pretzel buns are done. They're bulk rise. I'm going to cut them into 16 because I doubled this recipe. I get 16 instead of 8. They're not perfect, but neither am I. So we're going to roll with it. And I'm just going to shape these into buns. I use my thumb or my finger to push the dough up through my fingers, as you can see here, and then I pinch the bottom and roll it a bit on the counter for some tension. And I'm going to lay these all out on a baking sheet to do their second rise, and I'm just going to set those on my oven, a nice warm place to do the rise. I'm sorry, the video quality as I'm showing you these muffins is not super clear. Of course, it got dark because when you're baking, the day continues to happen, and in the winter, it gets dark fast. So the lighting is not wonderful, but these muffins turned out super moist and super delicious. I am making an egg wash that I'm going to put on the pretzel buns after I boil them. So I'm going to boil them for about 30 seconds on each side. And I have this special little spoon with holes in it to help me do that. I'm going to put them onto some parchment, brush them with the egg wash, and sprinkle a little bit of coarse salt on top before I bake them for 15 minutes at 350. Now sometimes I slice an X in the top of them, and when I did it today, I apparently didn't do it very deep because they weren't super defined. A lame would have worked better, or a razor, to do the X on top for the classic pretzel bun look. I'm gonna get my dinner started now, so I'm just lining a cookie sheet with some tin foil, and I cut up some sweet potato as well as some carrots and onions, and I laid those out on the sheet. I'm putting avocado oil, salt, pepper, and some sage on top, as well as a bit of garlic powder and some parsley. Then my favorite part, I'm going to drizzle some honey on top of this as well before I roast it in the oven. So for dinner tonight, I am going to make some bowls. I've got some new bowl plates, soup plates, whatever you want to call them, and I'm so excited to make many meals in these. I'm already using them so much, and so I'm going to make a bowl sort of meal today. In these bowls, I've got greenhouse lettuce. I'm going to put some chickpeas in. I've got some local cheese that is dill and garlic, which is so good. And I'm going to make a dressing. I've also got sausage cooking on the stove and those veggies that we threw in the oven already. So the sauce or dressing for this, I'm making kind of like a mayonnaise. So I've got some oil, eggs, a squirt of yellow mustard, and a splash of lemon juice, salt and pepper, and I'm going to blend those up, but my beeper went off, and so I'm going to take out my pretzel buns. Now, because I did 100% whole wheat, they don't look like the traditional pretzel buns. If you've ever made pretzel buns with 100% whole wheat flour and they do look like the traditional pretzel buns, please tell me your secret to that, and I would love to try it out. But these still taste like pretzel buns and were so delicious. We ate them with the roast beef the next day that I started in the beginning of this video, and it was so delicious. Okay, back to my salad dressing. I added a bit of maple syrup and some garlic and salt and pepper, as well as onion powder to it. I then added a little extra lemon juice to just make it a little more tart. And I love that about salad dressing is you can just kind of keep adding things as you feel that it needs. So it's kind of a mayonnaise-based maple kind of dressing to go with the honey drizzled vegetable. Sweet potato and maple syrup go so well together. That is what kind of inspired me. And then I need a crunchy element to go with this. And so I quickly just toasted in butter some sliced almonds. When I make meals like this, a bowl recipe, I put the plate together for my kids a little bit differently. So I want to show you how I do that. So I've got my kids' plates here, and basically I just keep every element separate, but I always make sure every element is on the plate so they can have an opportunity to try each piece, but they can kind of see it as it is on its own as opposed to all mixed together. That's just kind of overwhelming for young kids often, and maybe kids will mix it together, but at least to start to see all the different elements, I keep them separate. I forgot to, I also made some quinoa to bulk this meal up a bit, so I'm going to put together a plate for myself and my husband now. These are my new bowls and I am loving them. They are so pretty and they just inspire me to make more delicious meals. All right, I've got dinner cleaned up. Last but not least, my sourdough bread needs to be baked. But the thing is, I needed my oven at 500 degrees to start, and so I had to wait until everything else was done. So now it's nighttime after dinner. My husband is playing with the kiddos, and I'm going to finish up my time in the kitchen by putting my bread onto some floured parchment and just shaping them into a loaf shape very gently, and I'm going to add them to my preheated loaf pans, dust them with a little bit of flour, and then score them. I've been finding when I do it like this, my loaves need a really deep score, and so I tried this time to do it even deeper, but honestly, I could have gone even more deep. If you are an expert on scoring sourdough bread, please comment below with your tips or your thoughts about this. I am just about a year into my journey of sourdough, and I am ready to soak up any wisdom you have for making a sourdough loaf like this. Thank you so much for joining me in my farmhouse kitchen today for some baking and cooking dinner. I am so glad you came here. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I am trying to build my YouTube community here. It would mean so much to me and my family if you would subscribe to my channel so I can keep making more videos like this. Thanks so much for coming. We'll see you next week. Bye, friends.